really what's going to be key is making sure that we're all still communicating with one another. It becomes really easy to bury your head in the sand and focus on exactly your small part that you're doing and not get out and talk about your other partners and find out what they're doing and how you can actually leverage the work. I think for us as a nonprofit, the reality, frankly, is that you cannot build affordable housing without subsidy. There isn't a formula to do it. And so for us, we're seeing that those subsidies are becoming, the pots are becoming smaller and there are more applications going in every single time. So what we are really striving for is making sure that those dollars, we understand how difficult it is to earn them, and so we want to make sure that they are creating affordable, permanent housing. And that is really something that we're constantly thinking about. It's not just benefiting that first home buyer, but 4 home buyers from now. They'll also see a benefit. And actually not just the home buyers, but this community will see a benefit by having a few homes at this particular income level that will be there forever. So that's really one of the things that we keep mindful of.
So I'm here tonight, to speak about the city of Ithaca. I wanted to point out that I'm on the Common Council. Several of my colleagues are also here tonight. I think we have Don Fleming, Ralph Gerhardt, Laura Lewis, Cynthia Brock, and we also have some staff from the planning department. Nick Goldsmith, who's our sustainability coordinator for the city, and I think Tom Knight is back there somewhere. Oh, there he is. So I just wanted to say that we have a lot of folks from the city here tonight because this is obviously a huge issue for the city. Looking back, since I've been on Common Council, we've taken several steps to promote housing growth in the city. I think the biggest, is that we approved several zoning changes. We also revised our tax abatement program, so I'm sure you've seen some of the larger projects going up. A lot of that was designed to promote growth in the urban core, more compact, mixed-use development. But overwhelmingly, much of the new development that's happened is rental. And I'm really encouraged that we're having this event tonight because we do have a serious problem in the city with building new for-sale housing. Except for INHS and some other nonprofits, Habitat for Humanity, and then occasionally a developer like Buzz, we really aren't building any new for-sale housing in the city. It's a really serious challenge. And I think the biggest challenge, just as Johanna was saying, is that it's cost. If you're building housing in a greenfield somewhere, that it's going to be much cheaper. But if you're building in a dense urban environment, 1, there's not a lot of land. 2, the land is going to be more expensive. And then 3, you have to deal with all the regulations that come along with building in a denser environment. All the regulations that I believe are important because they protect public safety, but they do come with a cost. So I think one of the biggest challenges we have as a city is figuring out how do we incentivize that people to build for-sale housing in the city, and also how do we make the process more predictable? Because that's one of the biggest complaints that I hear is that when you're trying to build housing in the city, some departments of the city might not necessarily be communicating with each other. There's challenges, there's surprises that come along, like you have to get a second engineering study done. And so all of those surprises can be very complicated, they can be very costly. And I think figuring out ways to smooth out that process and make it easier would be a good thing to do.
Okay, so I was really interested in Sean's comment that he made about the people that come in with a lot of talent and they can't find a place to live. We see that all the time as well. They get pre-approved, they might shop around for a house and they cannot find anything. It's extremely frustrating. And so I see that as well. It's not just you, we share that. So from a financial viewpoint, there's a lot of problems in this area with cost. It's rising interest rates right now, and just how do you get the down payment? How do you afford your closing costs? We live in a very expensive area. The taxes you have to close your loan, it's really expensive. And we get a lot of shock from people that move here from other areas. We show them their loan estimate and they're just floored by the amount of money you need in this area to close a loan. So, over the years, we've come up with some different solutions to that. I think we can work further to, provide some assistance for down payment and closing costs. We have a lot of great programs out there with our partners, some things we do ourselves at CFCU. So it's closing costs, it's rising interest rates. I just read an article this morning that by the end of 2019, a buyer's cost to own a home will increase by 8% just based on the rising interest rates that are predicted to be 5.5% by the end of 2019, which in the grand scheme of historical rates isn't that bad, but when you've had a number of years at 3%, 5.5% that's crazy, right? So, we continue to look at ways. Interest rates, that's a tricky one because I can't just go out there and say, I'm going to give you 2% today. There's a market out there and you have to play with that market. So that's a tricky one, not really sure what the solution is there. Closing costs, I think we can continue to work on that and try to find some solutions for that. But I'm interested to hear input on, what others think about that as well. So it's all yours.
Oh. So I guess I, along with a few others in the room, are kind of in the unique position to feel it all facets, because we're trying to do it. And what we run into trying to do it is literally everything on this green page. And we deal with 15 different municipalities. Every one of them is different. Seemingly none of them talk to each other for any sort of collaboration and making it a smoother path forward. I've been told that I'm not allowed to whine tonight, nor can I be too long-winded, both of which are
That is correct,
both of which, anyone who knows, many of you know me, that's a tough mission. But I'm really good at that. But I do see some opportunity for change, and I will just say initially that if there is not change, if the status quo stays the way it is, houses $300,000 or less will not be built in Tompkins County, because private people, private entities can't make a living doing it. It's just flat out that simple. So, and we're the ones who have 100% of the skin in the game. Everyone else has a part of players in it, but we are the ones who are putting our livelihood out there to try to make it happen. So I sometimes question, why then are we required to pay 100% of the cost? It's not just us paying 100% of the cost, it's the future taxpayer that is paying 100% of the cost. So you have to remember that we're providing a service to, we feel, the community. We're not trying to get rich. We're trying to build houses that people can afford. And without help along the way somewhere, be it from communities, from financial institutions, from all of the various players, it ain't gonna happen. So that's my whine for that. I think one of the things that really needs to look at in terms of development structure, I think we need to get smaller. I think everything we do in building homes needs to get smaller. They need to get closer together. They need to get closer to the center of town. They need to be smaller footprints. They need to be community-oriented, a quality of living that the demographic is showing that that's what people want. One of the things that we're trying to do at Tiny Timber is to keep our housing prices down to under $150 a square foot. And anyone who builds anything will tell you pretty immediately that you can't do it. And we're trying to buck that trend now. I'm either going to go broke, or we're going to provide a service for the community into the future, and that's our hope. So, one of the things that we're looking at very hard right now is really getting small. And small meaning a 2-bedroom, single bathroom house that's 550, 600 square feet. And you can put a lot of them on a small footprint. allowing zoning changes to make some of these things more accessible, more easy to move forward. If I can build for $150 a square foot and I build a 600 square foot house, do the numbers. The house is less than $100,000. The lot is going to cost you $50. It's just the way it is. But you're still putting a house out there for $130,000. I think the other thing that needs to take place, and I actually wrote a little cheat sheet that I firmly believe that there needs to be an organization that's created in Tompkins County. I even have a name for it. I have to put my glasses on. I was retired once. The Tompkins County Office of Housing Coordinator. And I was really interested by the fact that this what they're calling public and private over here. It was public and private, but it was a public and nonprofit. And that plays a really big part, because if you're somebody who's nonprofit, all of a sudden you can come in a neutral position, right? You don't have this adversarial thing of me, the developer, versus a planning board that is looking out for their town. It's automatically adversarial. If we create this organization that has knowledge in the home building process, that acts as navigators, facilitators, coordinators among the communities, working with developers and the various communities to try to create cooperation and collaboration. This organization, it can be funded by multiple forces. Cornell, Park Foundation, real estate agents, communities. It can provide services back to the communities. It can provide professional services, professional planning services, coordination between private development and areas within communities to work within their plans. Their communities' long-term plans, identifying those areas, and then making it just go smoothly, go faster. There's two things in development. One is money and the other is time. And time will kill you as fast as money. If it takes a year to push something through, but I have people who are pounding on Brent's door to buy houses, and we sign contracts, and I say, oh, no problem, I'll have you in here in November. And November comes and goes, and I'm putting them in my wife's vacation rental business because they can't move into their house because I don't have a CO, or I have a new engineering plan that is required, which I have to pay for, and then pay to get it reviewed by somebody else. I mean, there's a million different things that can change, and everyone needs skin in the game. Everyone has to come to the table and say, what can we do as a community, as a financial institution, as a builder, to bring the costs down? And there's a million different things that can be done. It just needs to have the leadership and movement to do it. So, I'm done.
Excellent. Thank you very much. One more quick question for our panelists. When I first moved here, I was doing research on Ithaca. I'm a wannabe historian and trying to understand why Ithaca in the greater area has such a large attraction for the educational institutions that it has. And the county has any number of waterfalls, right, not just Ithaca. And I remember reading someplace, are there any scientists in the room? Good, I can go, oh, shoot. All right, well, this is not my idea, but you can yell at me afterwards. That the idea that the waterfalls creates negative ions, and negative ions helps you create oxygen, and the extra oxygen helps you think better. Again, not my idea, right? But in some regards, I think it helps us hold people accountable to creating better solutions in our community, whether it's true or not. And so the idea being, we know we have an issue in our community, and we have to come up with innovative ideas that may not exist currently. And oftentimes these ideas may be things that when we first speak to them or put them out into the ether may sound a little bit off-putting. And so I think that sometimes when we give these ideas, we have to sort of let them sit for a minute. So I'm saying that hopefully to give some space for our panelists in case they want to. Is there an idea, similar to what Buzz just said about a new organization, is there an idea or an innovation that we should consider or think? And there's no pressure from any of our panelists, but anything that you may want us to consider while we have the time and opportunity. And I saw Buzz's hands go first, so maybe we'll let him speak first, and we can cut him off and go from there.
Help me out. Revolving loan fund. Private money put into a fund managed by somebody, could be managed by this organization, and it's not for the financing of a house. The banks have done great for us. I mean, I get my house financed. People apply for a mortgage, they get it, they buy my house. It's the $1 million of soft costs that you have to put in, right? Soft and hard costs. And municipalities are saying, you have to put it 100%. You have to build the infrastructure 100%, pay for it 100%. Well, I don't have $1 million, and I'm sure that there isn't a banker out there. If there is, please come forward. But, you know, they aren't gonna lend, and I don't blame them. But there needs to be this pool of money that is made available to somebody who's coming up with plans that work and meet the needs, and they can borrow this money, they can pay it back out of the proceeds of individual lots. We're not asking for it to be a grant, we're not asking for tax abatement, we're just asking for the dough to move a project forward. And if that's not there, it doesn't happen. That's me.
Anybody else? Sure. Go something forward or an idea?
Oh, come on. I didn't do homework.
I think, you know, again, I was saying this earlier when I made the statement before, but I think one of the challenges that any developer has is dealing with, when you're dealing with municipalities, that you're often dealing with multiple departments within that municipality. So you're dealing with the engineering office, you're dealing with the planning department, maybe dealing with a separate building department. I think, you know, having an individual who is able to kind of coordinate between all those departments and kind of lay out the process in a smooth, kind of predictable way. Just as Buzz was alluding to before, you know, having to do that second engineering plan is a big surprise, it's a big shock that comes along, and you've got to pay for that. I think having that almost like a one-stop shop, having whether it's somebody who's coming from, you know, hired externally who's doing that, almost as a consultant, or whether it's somebody who's designated within the municipality whose job it is to really kind of to lay out the process in a smooth, predictable way, so that developers know what they're facing as they go through the process.
I'll just follow up with Seph. At the town of Ithaca, we invested in some database software, which all the different departments can get into so that we can follow how a development is proceeding. So the planning department can, you know, check off that, yes, they met all these conditions, and then the engineering department and the codes department. So we communicate quite a bit on development projects. We meet pretty regularly, but we also have the software that's you know, just following the progress of a project. And I think that has improved our process quite a bit at the town.
Absolutely. Well, now we're going to force you all to do some work. So some of those conversations you were having before, given the